We're going back to 2818, and we have,
These two together, Genoa and David.
okay, so Genoa and David Ingram and David
Sellers.
Okay, Sellers. I'll go with it. Oh, but you didn't waste any space, and I appreciate that. So, please identify yourself for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I am Genoa Ingram. I represent the Oregon Fire District Directors Association and the Oregon Volunteer Firefighters Association. I have both of my bosses in the room today, so I will be on my best behavior. First, to talk about need, ever since I've been working for the fire service, the theme has been the need for attraction and retention of volunteer firefighters. It was so great that it's been about 11 years ago now that FEMA put out a book about how to attract and retain volunteer firefighters. The problem in Oregon is that most of the suggestions put forward in their manual were illegal due to the ethics laws. You may or may not know that Oregon volunteer firefighters are subject to the same ethics standards as any other elected public official. So some of the things like, I think Colorado gave free cable and things of that nature are prohibited because of our ethics laws here. The Oregon Volunteer Firefighters Association did try to establish their own incentive program. They had a fund. They used to have a fund for hardships for volunteer firefighters. If there was a death or if someone were injured, they would usually provide $1,000 to hold them over until either the DPSST money came through or just to help the family with expenses. It also went for scholarship training, and so we work hand in hand with DPSST at our conferences. And I want to tell you about our firefighter conferences, and Mr. Chair, I promise I'll just be as brief as I can, but this is my passion. Volunteer firefighters are my passion. So when you go to a volunteer firefighter conference, you don't sit at a table and get lectured to like at most conferences of the associations I manage. They have things like vehicle extrication and rope rescue and water rescue and high angle rescue, and they're out there learning how to be most effective in the event of an accident or a tragedy. And so we work hand in hand with DPSST to provide that training. They either send instructors, DPSST instructors, or DPSST will give us a grant to hire our own instructors. So it's top-notch training to help our volunteer firefighters do the best job that they can. The problem is with that fund, the training fund and the death and hardship fund, it has been completely depleted. The need was just greater than what was coming in. We have zeroed out that account. We have closed the bank account. There is no account at this time. About 7 years ago, Representative Boone has a very good memory, we were discussing ways to help the volunteer firefighters in a legal way, in a manner that would not go against the ethics laws. And we thought it would be a great idea. There was the tax checkoff for the arts. There was various checkoff programs. And I thought, well, I think I'm going to fill out an application for the Oregon Volunteer Firefighters to be part of that tax checkoff program. And I looked at the statute, and lo and behold, it said that you have to collect 10,000 signatures. And I thought, well, that's not a problem. These guys have more energy than anything. But you also have to have banked $1 million the previous year. And I went back to them and I said, if we had banked $1 million last year, we wouldn't need this bill. And I understand the thought behind it. I understand that they want to make sure you're a legitimate organization, but these guys are well, maybe he's not. Most of them, most of them are as legitimate as they come. And I can verify that the Volunteer Firefighters Association does very good things. They support the Burn Center. Dave is in fact, I believe he's on the advisory board for the Burn Center. We contribute to that. When we can, we have an auction every year, and that money goes to support the Burn Center. So what this bill does, and I want to make it very, very clear because there have been some misunderstandings throughout the many years that I've been doing this, it does not automatically put the volunteers on that tax checkoff program. It simply removes that obstacle to have that $1 million requirement. And as you can see, I attached a copy of the bill to my testimony, and there are several other organizations, the Alzheimer's Association, the Veterans Home, et cetera. And we just want to be included in there. We think it's an important, viable organization that should not have to be required to show that they are a legitimate organization by having that $1 million. So, a little bit of history. I'm going to give you a history lesson. I went to work for the volunteer firefighters in 2007. They came and knocked on my door one night while I was working late, and they said, "Will you take us?" And I said, "Absolutely." I had lost a home to a fire. They were the guys who showed up. And I have always made a promise to myself that if I could help the fire service in any way, I would do so. And it's just something, as you can probably tell, I'm very, very passionate about. If you talk to me, you don't probably get 10 words without me saying volunteer firefighter somewhere in the conversation. In 2008, we talked about, as you said, funding, and in 2009, I brought forward House Bill 3414, which was the very first tax checkoff bill. It was identical to the bill that's before you today. That bill passed the House unanimously on Thursday, June 25th. It was, I think, the first day of your conference. And I was told them that I couldn't go to the conference because I wanted to make sure the bill got a hearing on the other side. The problem was we were so late in the session, the bill was just held up till the very last, that there just wasn't time to hear it. So we came back 2 years later in 2011 with House Bill 2564. It had a hearing in the House Revenue Committee on February 16th and was never heard from again. There was no work session, there was no subsequent hearing, there was nothing. Then, in 2013, there was Senate Bill 128. It passed the Senate unanimously on May 22nd, 2013. So there's a little trend here. Each chamber has passed identical bills unanimously, but I've been around 35 years, and even I know that they have to pass both chambers in the same session, and that hasn't happened yet. So here we are back with 2818. And here's where it gets not so fun. If this bill goes to the House Revenue Committee, I believe it will die. I believe it will die. I know that there are members of the Revenue Committee who do not like the tax checkoff program. I understand that. But until it goes away, I'd like an opportunity for the volunteer firefighters to have their shot at being there. I'm asking, because there is no revenue impact, and it's been shown time and time and time again, that there is no revenue impact. The Department of Revenue has testified in previous sessions that there is no negative impact on the Department of Revenue. There is no negative impact on anyone. This is one way, and if we sound a little discouraged about why we don't have, why we're not asking for more, I'm thinking if we can't even get this, if we can't get this, why bother? This is a way to provide incentives, death benefits, and training for volunteer firefighters that does not cost the general fund a penny. It does not cost the taxpayers a penny unless they choose to contribute. So I have very thoughtfully crafted a little letter to the Speaker asking for the subsequent referral to be rescinded. I have a master copy. Some of you approached me about signing on to that letter. If you would care to do that, I do have a copy on me. And then the last thing I will say is also attached to my testimony, and you're probably wondering why. Also back in 2009, there was a bill 2420 that was a cancer presumption bill for paid firefighters. And the council came to us and they said, would you put your name on the bill as a requester, even though you're not included? Well, being who they are, the volunteers support all public safety entities in the fire service. They fight fires side by side many times with paid, and they said, absolutely, we will put our names on that. And at the time, the council said, in return, if there's something down the road that you want, we'll help you get it if it's reasonable. We think this is reasonable. So Kelly Bach and Bob Livingston, if you're out there, this is all we want. This is all we're asking for. We believe it's reasonable. It doesn't damage any entities, and it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. And it makes certain that the volunteers who may be fighting right beside you, your members of the council, are well trained. So I'm prepared to respond to any questions. David's here to respond to questions. I don't know what else to say about this bill. It's a fabulous bill, and we urge, please don't send it to Revenue because it will die.
Representative Boone.
The end.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add one little thing to your testimony, Genoa, and that is to say, and you did a beautiful job, the fact that it is a check off, that means that when I get my tax return, I can give it to this group. And that's how it doesn't cost the state anything. It's a choice thing. Nobody makes you, but other people can. I can't tell you how many times we get a little thank you card. I guess you guys might have seen those in your departments. You get a thank you card from someone who rolled over on the highway and you saved them, or they had a fire or whatever, and they'll send a check. They'll send a, I don't know, $100, $50 or something. This will give them another place to put it, if they would like to do that, or hopefully a bigger amount in that sense. But we get that all the time. What can we do to help? Who can we send this to? And our department uses it to defray costs mostly for training and stuff. But every once in a while, like on a big fire we just had, the pumper kind of quit, and not a good thing when it's a big house.
Not very good.
But, these are the kinds of expenses you don't budget for. I mean, you have a budget, but it's always really skinny. And the people or get hurt. Somebody gets burned, has to go to the doctor. Somebody has a problem, God forbid, is killed. But it happens, or they're laid off work for that time, or not laid off, but off work because they're injured. And that helps them defray their family costs. So that's another reason for it. But thank you. You did a really good job explaining it.
Representative Escobar?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
You had mentioned you had an account before and you shut it down. Where did the money come from in that account?
That's a good question. It was before my time. I know that the Volunteer Firefighters Association used to also do telemarketing, and they may have just had a budget item that they put aside. Jim Ader used to be president. Do you know? Did it come from telemarketing? Yeah. It did. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. My apologies. It did come from their telemarketing. It was a line item budget. We don't do telemarketing anymore. They haven't since I've been with them. We rely specifically just dues and any contribution that may come our way.
Great.
Well,
Certainly, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, a lot of us in here have been involved with the checkoff system in the past, and I don't understand why it would go to revenue, because there's no revenue involved here. There's not a increase or a decrease in revenue, and the only thing it can possibly do, because it's monies that you volunteer to give, but it wouldn't be to the state of Oregon, it'd be to them. So I'm kind of confused on why it would be.
Well, that's a good question. We'll be pursuing that question.
Maybe
to try to
she has an
understand
answer.
Well, I think I might.
Representative Parrish.
Thank you. So the only thing I can think of, and maybe we need to pull somebody in from the Department of Revenue, is the administrative cost of sending that money back. Because there shouldn't be a cost, but they could come up and put up a little red flag that says, well, it's going to cost us, $10,000 to add it all up and send them a check, and therefore there's a fiscal. I just want to say and put on the record that I think when there are things like this in existing programs that we already do, where you check the box and you can give your money back, that there shouldn't be. I mean, for goodness sakes, we pay these people at the Department of Revenue with taxpayer dollars. They should absorb it and make it part of their day, because that's what we're tasking them to do. And when the agency comes and says, well, we got this little fiscal, and then that is the roadblock from getting good public policy done, I have a real problem with that. But so I think that that's maybe where the fiscal comes from. But I think that if this committee would write a letter to the speaker and say, we would like we think we would like to hear from DOR, but we certainly think that this should be something that is part of their day, and that they should be able to figure out how to add this up really quick and cut a check to whoever needs to get the money. That doesn't seem like it's a whole lot of time in somebody's day. So, and I think if we all maybe joined hands, if this is a priority of this committee, we should ask for the subsequent referral to revenue to be lifted this time.
Sal, we're joining.
So- Oh, not literally, okay.
Oh, yeah. If you'd like to hold hands literally, I've got a little bit of a cold this week, but I'm happy to share my germs with Debbie.
Share my germs with me. Your germs with me.
Because Jody Hack shared them with me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Oh.
right. She's here sitting here, so.
So there is a procedure, obviously, for asking the subsequent referral to be removed, and I'm more than willing to fill out the
Yes.
paperwork and ask that to be done and have that conversation. So, but go ahead.
Mr.
Representative
Chair,
Escobar.
it used to be, I don't know when we changed this, but it used to be if you had a fiscal of under $50,000, it wouldn't have to go anywhere. Wouldn't even have to go to Ways and Means.
there's
I don't know
still
what's
some
changed this,
criteria
but-
there about the amount, and it's a little unclear what the amount is. What
And
we
if
got
this
caught in
thing,
the last one.
if the Department of Revenue says it's gonna cost $50,000, we have a problem here someplace.
That's right, bingo.
Okay. Do you have something else?
Just to add on to what Rep. Parrish just said, and I think she's absolutely right, the system's already set to go. This just adds this organization to a list of places you can check off on your tax form to have your refund go. So I think it's already done, and like she said, just add it up. And
We'll volunteer to lick the one
Okay.
envelope when
Thank
they
you.
cut the check.
Then what's the problem, is what I have to say. So, David, would you like to provide testimony?
David Sellers. I've been a volunteer for 27 years and a past president of the OVFA. I think to answer part of your question, we used to do conferences with 200 to 300 people. And so there was donations that were given, as well as we were able to make a little bit more off of our conferences. We've always kept our conferences as cheap as possible to get more volunteers to come get this extensive training. But we were able to fulfill those funds because of the sheer numbers, which goes back to the retention of volunteers. We're struggling more and more to keep people volunteers. We were at our banquet this last week. We recognized a gentleman that's been a volunteer for 55 years. Okay, so the older generation gives their time. The younger generation, they're pulled way more places. We still can retain some. We still get them. We get them involved. A lot of those guys are working to become career firefighters. And if we as volunteers with the OVFA can train them to be professional firefighters, whether they're volunteer or career, that's what we're going to strive to do. So that's where some of the funding came from before. We've done our telemarketing. We know that there are people out there that will give to the volunteers. The last person that we were able to use the last of our money from our program was to the gal that got hit on 84 on her bicycle that was a volunteer firefighter. We used whatever was left to give to the department to reimburse them for some of the costs they had right at the beginning, right after the incident happened. These are the kind of things that we want to continue to do as the OVFA, as well as continue to provide this training that is more and more and more. Our new EMT rules have just gone up to where we're asking our people to do more and more and more. So if there is any way that we can get out to our people, get out to the citizens of Oregon and say, help OVFA provide some of these benefits we've had, this is something we felt was an easy way to do it without giving some of their money away to somebody else like we have to do with telemarketing.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions of David? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.